Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cosmic Owl Astrology with Louise Eddington. As always, I am the Cosmic Owl. And with me today, I have Lianne McCafferty, and we've just met. But I invited Lianne on my podcast because I've written the book on Ceres. It was published on August the 12th, and Lianne has written a book on Juno. And I was like, oh, how synchronicitous. And I have a very strong Juno, so I had to dive into her book, and I've got a great interest in all of these so-called goddess archetypes or whatever you want to call them. I don't know. And so I thought I'd grill grill Lianne about why Juno, why she wrote the book, all these kind of things. But first, Lianne, if you would tell people a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, thanks so much for having me on, Louise. It's always lovely to
Mm,
share our resonance with these archetypes, these feminine
mm,
goddesses, if you like. And so thank you for having me on. So I'm a British astrologer. I consult, I write, I'm an author, I'm a tutor for the Mayo School of Astrology, so I do a lot of teaching as well. And I have a particular interest in asteroids and trans-Neptunians as well. I've got a
mm,
really kind of researchy brain, so I just love getting into
mm,
the research. And I'm a mundane astrologer at heart, I think. So obviously,
mm.
there's a lot of
Me
research
too.
that comes in with all of that. So
Mm.
that's pretty much me in a nutshell, astrology wise.
And
So.
and how long have you been practicing astrology?
Um, I came into it quite late, I would say. I sort of came into it
Mm,
in my 30s, but from being very, very young, I had this obsession with sun signs,
hmm.
So any magazine or
Yeah.
any newspaper, even when I was really young, the first thing I would open would be the horoscope page. And here in the
Me
UK, we had the
too.
likes of Mystic Meg. You'll remember Mystic Meg.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
we did. Oh, I do. Yes.
Exactly, and of course Russell Grant and things like
Hmm.
that. And
Mm,
but my life took a different route. I went through a
mm,
couple of different careers, and then like I say, at that point in my life, I was at
mm,
a crossroads. Okay,
hmm.
and
Yeah.
I was looking for something to. I wanted to sort of form a new career. I wanted to perhaps go back and study.
Mm,
And but one day I was reading a horoscope and I just thought, how do they write this? Where do they get this from? How do they do this? So I
yeah.
literally went into a public library, got a couple of teach yourself astrology books, and never looked back. And here I am. And
Go
the
back.
first time I
Yeah.
generated my own natal chart, that was it, right? That's it. I'm doing this for the rest of my life. Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's kind of weird the circuitous route some of us take
Yeah. Yeah.
to become professional astrologers because
Yeah.
my journey, I was obsessed like you were as a young person.
Mhm.
I've even got some things I wrote when I was really young, must have been about 14, about sun signs. But then on my Saturn return, somebody did my chart for me, a friend, and this because I'm probably older than you. This was before computers, and she did a written delineation of my chart, and I was like, oh my god, it's so right. So I
Yeah.
I taught myself how to hand
Yeah.
calculate charts, like with
Yeah.
tables of houses and things.
Yeah.
But I didn't become a professional astrologer, so that was 29 till I was 51. So there you go.
Wow. So you've got your Saturn return
Yeah.
and your Chiron return as pivotal points in
Yeah.
that. That's lovely.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? Yeah. But
Yeah.
anyway, I won't go on about my story. I just find it interesting how people come to it. But
Oh,
so
absolutely.
this
Yeah.
book, yeah, so why do you know what kind of spoke to you about Juno? I talk about in my series book about why Ceres first, at least for
Mm.
me, but why do you know?
Um,
Mm,
well, I think I've got a I came from a scientific background as well. So
Mm,
I've got a really curious mind. And
mm,
obviously I've got a foot in traditional astrology, but I am a modern astrologer. And I just love exploring and etc. So, I wanted to see what else could be in the chart apart from, the classic Sun,
mm,
Moon, Mercury through to Pluto type thing. So yeah, I was
mm,
just playing one afternoon, discovered all of these asteroids, discovered Juno, and found that Juno was really prominent in my own natal chart. And I think if
mm,
we end up specializing in a particular planet, body, archetype, whatever it is, it often tends to speak to us through our own charts and our own myth that
mhm.
we find in our own chart, etc.
Eh,
So yeah, so I just decided to start
yeah.
focusing on Juno, and then COVID lockdown,
Hmm.
2020, and Juno was just a singleton planet, out on our
I
own.
remember it.
Yeah,
My eyes lit up when I saw that in the book because I remember
yeah,
talking about it on videos that whole
yeah,
time. I was like,
yeah.
there she is, kind of carrying everything. So,
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely. And just, I
Yeah.
think describing the loneliness and the isolation on a collective level that we all,
Mm,
that our rights to connect with people had been taken away, at least physically.
mm,
And then it just
yeah.
made me laugh because, or I was at the AA conference last week. I was talking about COVID as a kind of potential modern myth and how we'll tell our children bedtime stories. And we
Oh,
might use stories like COVID, lockdown. It was quite a nice time for a while. It felt like a bit like you're on holiday and you're with your family. But
mm-hmm,
it was a bit of a nightmare. It felt like being dragged down to Hades if you were locked in with people that you really hated and didn't get along with.
hmm.
And I think Juno kind
Yeah,
of captures all of those dynamics and how to
I'd
navigate
say,
them.
I'd,
Yeah.
I'd say she does, it was yeah, I mean, I kind of enjoyed lockdown. I don't think our lockdown
Oh,
here in Utah was quite as severe as yours, but for me, I just loved those early days when there was no
yeah,
planes flying in the sky and
yeah,
nobody was driving to work. It was so
yeah,
peaceful. I was just like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah,
yeah. But
yeah.
yeah, but so I highlighted a few little bits from your book, mostly from the beginning actually, and you say I truly believe celestial energies are awakened within us, always when the time is right, and I totally agree with that. That's happened to me for all of these archetypes: Ceres, Juno, Pallas Athena. So I think I told you in an email I have Juno conjunct my Mercury exactly at 0 degrees Sagittarius. That's been
Yeah,
interesting having Uranus stationing. But it's in the
yeah,
11th
yeah,
house. It's in the 11th house, and I have a huge Sagittarius stellium. And interestingly, you really relate her to activism a lot, right?
yeah, yeah,
In the first chapter, you look at a
yeah,
couple of charts of really strong activist types. I've always been an activist, and I'd
yeah.
never really related my Juno to that. So, I think these books, even as an astrologer who's working with these archetypes already, I think we all add to each other's kind of
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
understanding.
We
Yeah.
we do we, we
Hmm.
we can't do this alone, and that's quite a Juno
Mm.
thing. It's about the collaborations, and it's about
Yeah.
what we bring as a collective and what we can share with each
Mm.
other. And when we collaborate and talk
Yes.
about our different perspectives, that's
Hmm.
when these planetary energies grow and really become more ingrained in our conscious. And um,
Hmm.
and that's when we can start using them properly because one of the reasons I wrote
Mm.
the book was I was so frustrated about Juno just being labeled as this significator of the long-term ideal partner in a relationship,
Yeah.
the beleaguered wife of Jupiter, and yeah, because there's so much more
Oh,
to it. There's
Oh,
so
there
much
is.
more. Yeah. And I was
And
just like,
as I think, sorry, I think it's
oh,
undoubted that she does show up as that sometimes,
she
in a
does,
chart
absolutely. Yeah,
as the marriage asteroid, as they call it. Some people call
absolutely.
it, but yeah.
Yeah, without a
Hmm.
doubt. I'm not taking that away, but there's so
Mm,
much more. And it's like for every
mm,
woman that's been labeled just a wife or mother or partner, or
mhm.
not just a woman, anyone who's just been labeled as a partner or parent
Yeah,
type of thing, there's
yeah.
so many more dimensions to them. And it's like Juno tells
Mm,
us that we shouldn't box ourselves in,
yes,
you know? Mhm.
exactly. Yeah. And that really speaks to me. So, thank you for bringing that out of her, if you like, in
Yeah.
astrology, because obviously in both our books we talk about the Greek myth, but
Mm.
I think a lot of how we talk about these energies, all of them actually, are too based on just the Greek myths. Would you agree? Just because we name them that
Yeah.
doesn't
It's
doesn't mean that's all that they are, right? So,
No, no, absolutely not, because it's so
mhm,
funny that you brought this up because
mm,
again, one of the talks I did at the AA conference last week was about should we reimagine the laws of old? Why are we
mm,
still so reliant on all the archetypal Greco-Roman,
ooh,
Inuit, Polynesian myths, etc.? And I'm not
mhm,
saying we should throw them away, absolutely not. But should we at least try and reimagine them or reframe them or create
mm,
new archetypes as we move forward? And
mhm,
I use the example of Ozzy Osbourne, who sadly passed away back
mm,
in the summer. And I had his natal chart there, and I absolutely stripped away. I said to the audience, I said, forget you know anything about myth. Ozzy is our brand new mythological figure, not Greek, not Roman, nothing. Brand new. And we
yeah,
worked through the story of his life. And the natal chart always describes the personal myth anyway, doesn't it? But then we
it
got to
does.
got to the end and found ourselves completely talking back in, like, the archetypal mythological Mars Jupiter figures, and then how Sharon Osbourne represented the Capricorn Mars in his chart, and how her Juno was
Mhm.
square as Juno and she was the long-suffering wife. So we'll never escape the classic myths, and I don't think we need to, but I
Mm,
think we should try sometimes and reframe or make some new
mhm.
ones, definitely, from whatever's going on in the world,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, I agree. So, come from a perspective as, language kind of creates how we see things in many ways. So I'm
Yeah,
passionate about, so maybe we should collaborate on something, because I've long been talking about and thinking about rewriting or
yeah,
reimagining the myths. Not, yeah,
yeah.
again, not totally getting away with the Greek myths, but maybe interpreting some of the even more ancient myths and some
Mhm.
of the modern ways. And I love Aussie, by the way. So I I watched the Video Music Awards last night on MTV, and they did the big tribute and
Oh,
Youngblood, and I was just bawling my eyes out. So there
yeah,
you go.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
So I wish I'd seen your
story.
talk.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
well, it's honestly, yeah. I'll try and send you the recording if I can. But his life story was
Mm,
just fascinating, and it was a myth in itself. And he was
mm.
such an unfiltered sage, wasn't he? He was
Oh,
just brilliant. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. This often unfiltered Sag, appreciated that about him. And he died on Mary Magdalene's feast day. So I'd be interested. I haven't
Oh
looked at his natal
wow.
chart. I should. So I should look at
Yeah.
Venus in his chart as well, because I work deeply with Venus. So because I
And
kind
it's
of
got
see Venus as Mary
Venus
Magdalene.
and Scorpio tied into the nodal axes, and it's
Ooh,
configured with Saturn and Virgo, so that rags to riches
yeah.
type story really does come through. But oh no, his story is so blatant in the natal chart.
Mm.
It's lovely.
I have Venus in Scorpio too. So no wonder. There you go.
Be interesting to see how close it is to Aussies. I
Yeah,
can't
I'm
think
going to
off the
go and
top
look
of my head.
afterwards. I won't make you do it now. So,
Thank you.
oh. So you do talk a bit about the astronomy. So I'd love your thoughts on that. As we know, they are in the asteroid belt, both Ceres and Juno, both that we wrote the books. And um, Ceres has been reclassified as a dwarf planet.
Yeah,
I actually really do not care how the astronomers defined them. Do you?
it's just a label. It's a label. I don't care. No,
Exactly.
no, no.
No, no.
I no, and
They
I
are
always
energies.
their energies,
Hmm.
and I always say with Juno, which is just a tiny lump of rock, to be honest.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
Jupiter might think that size matters, but Juno knows better. So there you go.
I read that in the book, and I did chuckle at that
Yeah.
one because Jupiter's my ruling planet. When he needs to be taken down a peg or two. Pallas Athena is at the same degree as well, so I'm good at
Oh,
taking
right.
them
Okay
down
then.
a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so I kind of have a bit of a theory about the asteroid belt. And I've in my book said that Ceres is actually kind of the missing personal planet, and all the
Mhm.
asteroids around it are kind of her helpers, if you like. I don't want to say I can't find a good word for it, but they kind of all work together. It's all faces
Yeah, yeah.
of those energies, and they, because it's the asteroid belt going around the Earth, it's kind of this protective layer. It feels like to me, of
Mhm.
Earth, of us. How do you feel about that whole theory?
I'd never
I'm kind
thought of
of
it.
unpacking it a bit. Yeah.
No, it's fine. I'd never thought of it, but I quite like
Mm,
that because if you think
mm,
of the likes of Ceres, Athena, Juno, they're all feminine archetypes, and they all,
mm,
on some level, are protective.
mhm.
Entities, I think they've got that very lunar or sort of alma mater, the magna mater, the great mother type feel to them, don't they?
They
Particularly
do.
Ceres. And
Yeah.
so that makes complete sense about that. And
Mm,
um,
mm.
just coming to mind, there's a astronomical thing about Ceres. So I believe Ceres is made up of they think made up of about 25% of water.
She is.
Um,
I've talked
yeah,
about it in my book.
oh,
Yeah.
oh, brilliant,
Yeah.
brilliant. So there's a solid
Yeah.
core in
Mm,
water and ice.
mm,
And this,
mm,
I know in Ceres's discovery chart, she's placed in Taurus, I think, from memory. So that
mhm,
very earthy, grainy resonance that we're familiar with. But
mm.
again, that Magna Mater, the Great Mother thing, it's such a water Cancerian thing too, and that makes
Yeah.
absolute sense about that protective energy. Yeah,
Hmm.
I like that. I need to think
Yeah.
on that more, perhaps.
And in Taurus, I see her as the Earth's protector as a whole.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
includes that kind of includes us because we
Mm,
are kind of a part of the Earth, really. We
yeah,
come from it and we go back to it afterwards.
yeah.
I could go on and
Exactly.
on about that.
Well, at
So,
least our physical bodies do, don't they? So
yes,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. So she is more related to the matter, the
yeah,
protection of the material world.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
and that's reflected in her myths. So I see Juno as another face of that, and Pallas
Mhm,
Athena,
mhm,
and all of them really. I sometimes add extra asteroids
mhm.
in many ways if they're speaking to me at times, but
Yeah,
I kind of feel like it's a more collaborative thing, which is
yeah.
much more feminine energy, not
Yeah,
about, I'm not necessarily talking about women, as you know. I'm talking
yeah,
about that energy of knowing we're all connected, and collaboration and working together,
mm,
all that kind of
yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. No, I think that's a really
Mm,
good point. And it's been
mm,
an interesting year, obviously, because we're moving into this air fire era, as we know.
hmm. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Saturn and Neptune are taking center stage, aren't they, with
Mm,
the conjunction, which came very, very close. It was only 12 minutes, from exactment back in July. And they seem
hmm.
to be like the best actors at the Oscars, if you like. Okay.
Yes.
But I know Ceres is very much tied in with the Aries energy of Saturn and
Oh, yeah.
Neptune. And yeah, and Juno was the first into fire this year, actually, because she moved into Sagittarius,
Hmm.
I think, in February. And
Hmm.
I was saying, I think the likes of Ceres and Juno, particularly this year, they're like the best supporting actors or actresses.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
every movie, obviously, people, the best actor or actress, but often
Mm,
it's the best supporting part that
mm,
carries the movie. And I see the
yeah.
like and Ceres exactly like that, and they're doing all the work behind the
Ooh,
scenes. They're keeping it
I
all
l-
together. Yeah,
and isn't that very kind of the feminine energy, if you like,
yeah,
more it's more receptive, more behind the scenes, more kind of, um,
yeah.
yeah. So, whereas I hate the terms masculine and feminine
I
and
know, I
now
know.
because it's become so political and it's all about but
Yeah,
but I see us kind of bringing these energies to the fore and showing them
yeah.
that actually they are just as powerful. So they are not just
Mhm.
supporting players in this
Mm.
drama, they are major
Holding it
players
together.
in the
Yeah,
drama of life.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're
Hmm.
making it happen,
Yeah.
and they're joining all the dots together. And I think they're going to be
Hmm.
even more prominent going forward because, of course, the outer planets are all in those so-called masculine or positive signs of air and fire.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
like, these asteroids which have the shorter cycles, they're going to be picking up the water and the earth and as we go along.
Mm.
So
I've really been watching Juno in Scorpio the last while she's been retrograde. And because I also add Haumea and Hecate and
yeah, yeah,
of
yeah, yeah,
course
yeah.
Vesta, she's in Scorpio. They are kind of working deep, doing
Yeah.
deep work in Scorpio, but we could go on and on about that.
Oh, I know,
Let's
I
talk a
know.
bit more about your book. So I kind of got a bit. I stopped at the activist bit because I haven't had time to go further. But what other archetypes do you uh, think she represents? You've said the Great Mother. There's probably some other ones. I know you've gone quite
Yeah, yeah,
through
yeah. The great
there.
mother, the political negotiator, the diplomat, all of those,
Mm,
et cetera, et cetera. But one that I really love regarding Juno is the potential for Juno to be a divine providence or benefic, which is in a later
mm,
chapter in the book. Because Juno obviously was absolutely renowned in Roman religious and political life.
mm,
And she had so many, oh, what's the word? It's just disappeared from my mind. It was there a minute.
mm,
It'll come back to me in a minute. But she had so many different
mm.
roles. All right.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we can go. We've got Juno, Regina, which is that classic
Mm,
Libran partnership, Queen consort. We've got Juno Curatus, the warrior, Juno
mm,
Sospita, protector of the people of Rome. But then we go down into those very kind of lunar, feminine type energies. We've got Juno Lucina and
mm,
Juno Martyr. And Juno was seen to be a protector of women in childbirth, the feminine principle, and
mm,
women in general. So,
mm,
there's so many other lunar archetypes like Diana that we could sort of connect with here. Um, but in my research, I started finding all of these stories where people either had a lucky escape or dodged a bullet,
Mm.
metaphorically speaking, or or had a wake-up call that I don't know, saved them from some situation that perhaps wasn't healthy or it was perhaps toxic, something like that.
Mm.
And I had my own personal experiences of that too. And there does seem to be that side to Juno of this guardian angel almost. And if
Mm.
you think Jupiter's classed as the great benefic, Juno, the
Hmm.
wife, who on some levels might be considered more powerful than a husband because she
Mm.
was probably more strategic. um,
Yes.
why should she not have some power as a benefic too?
Mm.
So I've got quite a few examples in the book about that. I can share my own personal one now if you'd like.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
yeah.
sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, because obviously it's useful for people to understand where a train of thought begins, where it's birthed, and
Hmm.
Juno's about protecting women. So I'll give you
Yeah.
two actually, and so the first one was a few years ago. I had quite a bad accident, which I shouldn't have walked away from, and I should
Mm.
have been very, very badly injured, or even worse. But I escaped with some broken ribs and a bruised liver, and I was just banged and bruised in general. But I did walk away, literally.
Mm.
And as astrologers, what do we do when something like that happens? We pull up the chart of the event, don't
Yeah.
we? And kind of like
Yeah.
nothing is really kind of sort of jumping out at me in the chart. But at the point of the accident, I remember this feeling that something was cushioning me. I really felt this sense
Mm.
of protection around me and that I had this
Yeah.
cushion. Anyway, it wasn't until a few years later when I started looking at Juno and I went back to that chart. And on the exact moment of that accident, transit Juno was right on top of my natal sun, right on top.
Ooh.
And I was like, that's the
Ooh.
missing piece to that chart and that
Yeah.
story. So
Wow.
I just went, I know it was like proper when the hairs go up on the on you, and then so I started going back. So
Mm.
when I was giving birth to my son, I'd had a really healthy pregnancy. I was working up till the day I went into labor, really fit. There was no
Mm.
complications expected at all. Anyway, it just ended up in a complete disaster and emergency, and we ended up being blue lighted to another
Oh
hospital,
my goodness.
and it was just
Oh.
a really nasty emergency.
Mm.
But both of us shouldn't have survived, and we did. And my son had no sort of
Wow.
effects or anything. And, by the law of averages, he should have had some perhaps long-term damage or what have you. But no, absolutely fine.
Mm.
So I look back at that, and the exact moment that that happened, transit Juno was right on top of my eighth house Pluto, which is absolutely
Oh.
plugged into loads of stuff in my chart. And
Yeah.
I was just like, it was a life or death situation. There was blue flashing lights, and I really thought I was going to die. I thought he was going to die. And I was just
Yeah.
like, oh no, there's something in this. And yeah, I just do think there's
Mm.
that protective element to Juno, without a doubt.
I,
Mm.
because I know my chart pretty much by memory.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
I can really see that actually,
yeah,
with
yeah.
already just thinking about where she is now as well.
Mm.
And talking about that protective thing, and I just mentioned that Juno's been retrograde in Scorpio with
Mm.
Vesta and
Yeah.
Hecate, which I use a lot because I love
Mm.
Hecate. But um,
Mm.
I see it with the Epstein files
Mhm.
with the women coming
Yeah,
forward. I don't know if you're aware that they did this
yeah,
big press
yeah,
conference on the steps of the
yeah.
Capitol, and this story,
Beautiful.
and I don't think this story is going away because,
No, it's
you know,
it's
people,
not.
yeah, mm-hmm,
It's not.
mm-hmm,
No. And Juno always fights for people's rights, okay? And
Mm,
Juno always sees the truth and always reveals what's tried to be hidden. We can go back to the myth where
mm,
Jupiter was having an affair with Io and disguised himself as a black
yeah.
cloud. Io was a white cow.
Mm,
Juno sees through everything, so Juno always reveals the truth. And in Scorpio, it's
mm,
that sign of the abuse of power, in its darkest form,
hmm.
sexual
And
abuse, etc.
secrets.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And cover-ups and people in power trying to
Mm,
cover things up. And so
mhm.
yeah, I'm behind those women
Oh,
all day, without a doubt. Yeah. And
oh, me.
yeah, Juno going back into Sagittarius next month, I think.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think we might see more legal drama around that. Yeah.
Oh, and no wonder I'm talking about it a lot because that, of course, will be my Juno return again because I
Oh,
have Juno at zero
lovely.
Sagittarius. So,
Oh, Geo returns are fabulous. I love them. They're absolutely
yeah.
fascinating. They tell us so
Mm,
much about where we are
mm,
regarding how we're sharing our power in our life, whether that's in our
mm,
relationships, financially, etc. It's creative as well. I think Juno's underestimated as
mm.
a creative energy as
Yeah,
well. But I think all
I
these
think they
feminine
all.
asteroids are,
I
yeah.
was going to say they all are
Yeah,
like Pallas Athena. She was goddess of the arts as well.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
she was not just this kind of person that
Mm,
hurt Medusa.
mm,
She was like way
yeah,
more, way more
yeah.
depths. Yeah, and also I kind of think those demonizing myths of all these feminine archetypes they were written during the rise of the patriarchy or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
they
yeah, yeah.
were. There was no stories of demons and rape and things like that. And I say that carefully because YouTube doesn't like the word, and I
Okay.
put this on YouTube. But those stories were started to be written in as the kind of hierarchical patriarchy started to rise. So so I think we have to unpack what was before that, and
Yeah,
these
yeah, yeah, yeah,
archetypes are
yeah.
not all demons at all,
No, no,
although they can be
absolutely.
fierce, for sure.
Well, it's power, and it we just go back to the classic times of where the patriarchy or the masculine figures in positions of power were scared of intelligent or powerful women. And you just look at Juno, who's
Exactly.
been labeled as a bitter, twisted, revengeful wife. She's far more than
Yeah,
that. And then we can talk about Lilith.
exactly.
Lilith being demonized for
Hmm.
refusing to submit. And yeah,
Yeah.
I feel so strongly about all of those themes. I really do. Yeah, it really resonates with
Me
me.
too.
Mm,
So I
mm.
have my Juno return. I just quickly looked on October the 2nd. So she goes in like a couple of into back into Sagittarius a couple of days before that. So that's going to be really interesting to watch when the truth starts to come out, I think. So,
And what
right.
degree is your Juno in Sagittarius?
Zero,
So you'll
zero
have
minutes.
you should have three
Yeah.
passes of Juno return.
Mhm.
This should be the third
I
one.
will.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah,
won't waste time looking back at the others at this point,
yeah.
but that really kind of strikes me now you've kind of
Powerful.
talked to that side of her more. I've kind of
Yeah,
talked about it in terms of the more mundane astrology because I think I too am more my soul is more of a mundane astrologer,
yeah,
I
yeah.
think, really. Yeah.
Same.
But talking about the world of astrology, which we're both in as women, and as women who kind of came to it. I don't know about your upbringing in the UK, but my upbringing, I was born into a very working class family. There's nobody in my family who does anything like this at all, not in the past. Maybe my maternal grandmother was a little bit psychic. She used to talk
Yeah,
about spirits a little bit, but
yeah.
and I'm not saying I'm a psychic, but that's the closest there is. It was very much demonized, and I believe that one of my ancestors, because I've kind of talked to her in shamanic journeys, was
Mhm.
actually poisoned herself because she was being demonized as a witch. So there you go. So, but anyway,
Wow.
our upbringing didn't. Our upbringing is really patriarchal,
Oh,
right? Basically, is what
oh
I'm
yeah,
saying. I
yeah,
don't know if
yeah.
yours was too.
Well, pretty much. So I was born
Mm-hmm.
1972. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I came from just that classic working class family, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of
Mm-hmm.
everyone in my family just went down the route. You went to school, you got a job or
Mm-hmm.
university, you got married, you bought a
Mm.
house, and you had children. So
Yeah.
I always
Yep.
thought that's what I would do. Well, I completely
Me
broke all the
too.
so I've got a Capricorn moon square Uranus, right? So I've
Mm-hmm.
not quite sort of
Mm-hmm.
fit the traditional model of perhaps the rest of my
Mm-hmm.
family, who are lovely. Don't get me wrong, I'm not criticizing my family at
Oh
all.
yeah, no,
It's
no,
just
no.
the
Yeah.
that stereotypical path that was
Mm-hmm.
expected growing up in the 70s, 80s, whatever. So yeah, I totally took a different route right from
Mm-hmm.
finishing my A levels and changing all my plans, throwing
Mm-hmm.
them all in the air, and and here I am now. And it's, but I would say it's taken me quite, well, probably to this stage of my life that I'm really comfortable
Mm-hmm.
not fitting in and not,
Mm-hmm.
following or fitting the mold. And I own it. It's taken me until
Mm-hmm.
well into my 50s to actually own it and embrace
It
it.
took me longer. Took me longer. I was born December 59, right at the end of the
Yeah.
50s. And so I grew up right through the 60s, and I'm the eldest child as well and the only girl. I have three brothers. My whole family
Oh,
was very patriarchal. The boys didn't do chores, I did,
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah,
But
yeah.
anyway, I rebelled against all of that like you. But
Mm.
even the area, most of my friends went to work in the factories in
Yeah,
Derbyshire because that's just
yeah.
what you did. I'm the first in my family to actually get a degree, so
Wow.
to go to
Wow.
college. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But it took me a, a longer time to do it because I have Saturn in Capricorn in the first, so I kind of had a lot to unpack there. So,
It
but I
wouldn't rush.
did.
It
I
wouldn't
with
rush, would it?
determination.
Yeah,
No,
don't give up.
took its exactly took its
Yeah.
time. But to go back to my original thought, I find the world of astrology in general is also very hierarchical and patriarchal. Do you? In many
Um,
ways.
I haven't,
It,
probably because I came into it a little bit later, and
mm,
I've had two other careers. So I've always been quite, through
mm,
experience, I'm quite cautious of who I surround myself with.
right. Oh, I
I'm
am
aware of
now.
what, yeah, yeah. You learn that Saturn in Capricorn learns the lessons hard, I guess. But yeah, I can see it, but I often put it down to a
Mm,
slightly generational thing. So I'll see the way that
yeah.
the generations perhaps operate. But I have
Mm,
seen a lot of divide, which I think is absolutely
mm.
crazy. We should be coming together and
Oh,
celebrating astrology and making astrology look incredibly professional and solid to the rest of the world,
yes.
sciences, etc., instead
And
of bickering about
and
how system works the best.
oh, oh, don't get me. Yeah.
For
I
example,
I
for example.
I got a bit enmeshed in that house system fight that was a
Mm,
couple of years ago or so because
yeah,
at the
yeah.
time I was studying with the STA Horary
Yeah,
school,
yeah, yeah,
and anyway, all I said was this is not good for astrology, and
yeah.
I got attacked and blocked, but never mind.
Well, do you know
So,
what? It's so sad and it's so needless.
mm,
And I think
mm,
there was it was so reactive. It was a
Hmm.
very reactive period, and
Mm,
I watched it
mm,
from the outside. I deliberately chose
mm,
not to get enmeshed in it because I knew at some
mm.
point it would probably blow over, but people still talk about it.
Oh,
And
they do.
there's so many systems that work beautifully, and we shouldn't be
I don't,
boxing.
I don't, I don't care which is the
No,
oldest, to be
no,
honest.
I don't. What works for you works for you. If it's enabling you
Yeah.
to do a good job, that's fine. And
Yeah.
we should be celebrating a diversity
Mm,
of different systems or different techniques, and we
yes,
should. Do you know what it comes down to? It's respect for each other's
it
working
is.
processes and
Mm,
choices, and we should just respect each
mm.
other. And if you don't like the way another astrologer works, just that's fine. Just focus on your system that
Move
works.
on.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. And that's why you'll rarely see me get involved in any
Mm,
debates on Facebook or anything like
mm.
that. I'm just like, oh
I
no, no.
I used to that Mercury, in
Yeah,
Sagittarius.
yeah,
It's also
yeah, I get that.
conjunct
Yeah,
Mars. So, but
yeah,
after I published my book, another astrologer shared photos of it on social media to say he'd got it, and he shared the contents page,
yeah.
and yet another astrologer saw that photo, came into my DMs, an older male, yes, and started saying, I can't use that discovery chart that's AA rated on Astro Databank because they have to be rectified, and we don't know that, yeah, and all this. And I'm like, I'm not interested. That's the moment
Mm,
Ceres came into our consciousness, because that's
yeah,
when Ceres was spotted, and that works
yeah,
for me. So,
exactly.
but so I think it's still out there, perhaps more here. I don't know. When
And
I
it's
first,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
when I
I
first
don't know.
became an,
Yeah.
sorry,
No,
when I
no, you
first
go, you
became an
go.
astrologer, I joined a Facebook group, and they started talking about types of astrology, and I said, "Oh, I'm an evolutionary astrologer. I'm from that school." Oh, I got hounded out of the group for saying that. It's so weird. Anyway, because I was a baby astrologer then, so I kind
Yeah,
of ran away with my tail between my legs, and so I'm not going near those
yeah.
people anymore. But I can
I
stand up for
I I
myself.
I think because what I've got quite a sort of gallows sense of humor, so I tend to laugh because if I don't laugh,
Mm,
I cry, right? So I try and find the
yeah.
humor in anything. And I
Mm,
always I've said this to a few people now, and I'm like, as astrologers,
mm,
we should have a very well developed sense of self, a sense of
hmm.
self-awareness of our character
Yes.
traits, what
Yes.
our skills are, what are things we're still needing to develop, perhaps,
Oh,
things that
totally.
might trip us up. And I
Mm.
see so many times just all these scraps on the
Yeah,
internet, social media, and I'm just like, do you have any self-awareness?
I know.
And I just think it shows that astrologers are just still humans and they're still
Yeah,
developing, they're still evolving. And
they are.
I think
Hmm.
that's probably why I don't get involved because I'm like, if I get involved, I'll
Oh,
just end up crying and I'd rather laugh.
I don't get involved anymore.
No.
Even though I really didn't think I got involved that in the house
Mm,
thing. I just kind of was saying I didn't hear that thing, but I
yeah.
won't even go there now. But I think it's representative of the this illusion of kind of separation, that
Mhm.
that this technique is the only one that works. This one is the only
Yes.
one that works. This one is the only one that works on the bigger picture. This is not about the people. And
Mhm.
I'm kind of on a bit of a mission to change astrology itself as a practice, to say we're just astrologers. I don't care whether you're this type of astrologer, this type of astrologer, use this house system, use that, whatever. It all seems to work because astrology is kind of quantum in nature, to quote Rick Levine. So,
No, no, no. I totally agree. Totally agree. And I
uh-huh.
think what Juno's just been speaking there, that mission to
Yes.
change that perspective in astrology. And that's your Juno conjunct those Sag planets. Definitely. Yeah,
It
absolutely.
is, yeah.
Mhm.
Which is why I felt impulsively drawn to go, I need to interview her on my podcast right away.
And that's what I love as well, because these synchronistic connections that we make, they're beautiful. They're really
Yeah,
beautiful.
they are.
Mhm.
They are. Yeah. So how is the book doing? Is it what was the publication date?
I think it was February. I think. Yeah, it was very beginning of
Right.
February. Yeah, yeah.
Been
And
out a
no,
bit longer than mine.
no,
Mhm.
it's great. Obviously it's spawned a
Mm.
lot of talks, etc., etc. And
Mm.
but already I feel as though I've got half of the sort of updated version sat in the back of
Me
my
too.
mind. I know, because do you know what?
Mm.
Especially from a mundane perspective, everything's changing so
Mm.
quick, and
Yeah.
already, and I think from all the workshops and talks I've done and what people share with me about their personal Juno stories, there's already
Mm.
another second edition there. Um,
Oh,
yeah, it's obviously I'm self-published, so it's a case of just
me
keeping the
too.
energy going. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But the
Yeah. Yeah.
self-publishing, you keep your creative rights, you have all the control over
Exactly.
the publishing and the
Yeah.
sales, and there's a lot to be
Mm.
said for that. And I'm not in any way diminishing anyone that chooses to go with a
No.
publisher,
No, me
but
neither. No, no.
for me,
Yeah.
it was a better fit to do it myself. Yeah.
Oh, it was me. I wanted to choose the title because I have three books published previously. I was paid to write by a publisher, and they chose
Mm.
the title. They chose everything
Yeah.
like the cover
Yeah.
art, and that was fine because they were kind of I proving to myself that I could get a book out there. But
Yeah.
this one, I even designed the cover and did all
Yeah.
things like that myself.
Yeah.
So
It's just
and
a
so
really
it's really
lovely
mine.
process. Yeah, it's a lovely
Mm,
process, and it's like the whole
yeah,
process of writing it and then designing the cover and the title. It's like it's a
mm,
baby gestating, isn't it? And then you give
it
birth
is.
to this creation. It is like a baby. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I'm already in my head working on the next edition. But I've also got two other books started. So, so maybe
Brilliant.
that's
Well,
where
you
I'm
do have a
going
lot of
more.
Sagittarius music.
Oh, I do. Yes, yeah, an awful lot. Sun, rising, Jupiter, Mars, Mercury, Juno, Pallas Athena. There you go. And probably some other asteroids.
Yeah.
Interestingly, asteroid Louise is at 21 Sag in my natal
Oh,
chart,
that's cool.
exactly conjunct my sun.
So that's 21 Sagittarius.
Yeah.
Also, my
Mhm.
Venus is 20 Gemini.
Ah, there you go.
Opposite asteroid
We always
Louise.
have it. Yes, cool,
Love it.
awesome.
You
Well, I have
couldn't
a
make it up.
feeling.
Couldn't make it up.
Well, I know. I'm probably going to come on your podcast in a few
Yeah.
weeks as well.
Yeah.
But for now, let's focus on you. So, what's coming up for you? What other things? I know you've just kind of getting over an event, but are you? Will you be coming to UAC next year? I know a lot
Yeah,
of British people don't.
I am. I'm booked for UAC 2026.
Mm-hmm.
And back to this year, I've just finished really about 7 or 8 months of like conferences and talks back to back,
Mm-hmm.
which has been great.
Mm-hmm.
So the autumn's a little bit quieter. Obviously the new term starts for the Mayo School next month, so all the online
Right.
lectures and what have you start again. It's like school
Mm.
time starting again. But I've got time to pick up on a couple of other projects.
Mm.
I've written a novel which is all wrapped
Mm.
around mythology and astrology. And so I'm
Oh,
just finishing the very last editing of that,
this
and
is
hopefully
this is
that's
weird. I have something that's mostly written that's kind of a novel, but also
there you
mythology and
go.
astrology. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that's coming out this autumn.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
and then the follow-up book to Juno, which is about how Maya. I'd hope to get out January, but the novel will come first. So that's probably going to be next
Mm,
spring. And
mm,
then I have another collaboration around Pallas Athena, which
mm.
I'll announce more about later. So I've got
Yeah,
absolutely lots of publishing stuff and writing stuff at the minute.
me too.
Yeah, yeah, which
I've
is
I've also I've al- I've also got my own book started on Pallas Athena because she's conjunct my Jupiter. But I think the more books, the better. It's
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
like the
because
more,
each one
yeah,
will bring something and make it bigger and
mm,
better. Yeah. And we'll all
yeah,
bring our own perspective. But
mm,
all the threads, all the different perspectives will all share something. They'll all
e-
resonate together beautifully.
exactly.
Mhm.
They will. And
Yeah.
so, for anybody listening that doesn't know what UAC is, it's the United Astrology
Yeah.
Conference. It's the biggest astrology conference. I'm a bit of an introvert, so it's a bit like overwhelming for me, but because I'm 12th
Yeah.
house the sun. But I'm going because I'm doing I well, I was persuaded to go, let's say. So I'm not speaking, but I'm going. So are you actually speaking there?
Yeah. I'm doing a talk there, but
Yeah,
I totally
yeah.
understand about the introvert side of things.
Mm, mm,
Because although I love the conferences in person, that you can't beat in
mm.
person speaking and teaching
No, you
and
can't. Yeah.
socializing. I do need to take myself off and get some quiet space, whether it's outside or back to my room or yeah, I need some
Me
quiet
too.
time. Yeah, because I
Mm,
do get drained when there's just
mm.
too much going on around me. Yeah.
And I generally like small conferences. So the idea of
Yeah.
1,500 people is a bit like,
It's a
so I'm just
lot.
not going to
Yeah,
think
it's
about it.
no, I'm not. I know
Yeah.
I'm not. Absolutely not. I'm totally with you. I get that.
And how can people find you? And well, obviously your book is available at all major booksellers, I would
It
imagine. I
is.
got it off
Yeah, it's on
Amazon.
Amazon and
Yeah.
online booksellers. I've got my
Mm,
website, which is just liannemccafferty.com. You
mm,
can buy it direct from me there too.
mm.
And I'm on all the usual social media channels like Instagram and Facebook and
Yeah.
no, not what else am I on? LinkedIn. I don't use LinkedIn very much, but I'm on there. Everything just gets fed onto there naturally.
Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's really
Yeah.
simple. Just McCafferty and you'll find me somewhere.
Mm. Well, I am not surprised that we have that big chart connection because, I just knew instantly that we had to
Yeah,
talk. And I have a feeling this could lead to,
yeah,
other kind of things. We'll
yeah,
see. But
definitely.
thank you for coming on because I know it's, what time is it there now? 10,
It's nearly 5 o'clock.
five,
It's
five,
fine.
five.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
fine.
But it's the
Thank
end
you
of
for
my, oh, and
inviting me.
are you doing consultations currently? Because I'm so
Yes.
busy,
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
actually put a pause on my consultations.
yeah.
Just can't do it.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
I do
yeah,
consultations as well. Yeah. So I've got
yeah,
a
yeah,
finger in every kind of pie at the minute. So,
yeah,
um,
yeah. Well, if you want a consultation with an in-depth look at your Juno, then there you
yeah,
go. So,
absolutely.
right.
Everyone
Well,
welcome.
thanks for coming on, Lianne.
Oh, thanks for inviting me. And you take care, Louise. Speak soon.
Thanks.
Bye
Yeah.
bye.